.64 degrees outside at 15 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour, Friday, July the 28th, and that means that it is time for our regular visit with members of the local media. Randy Holhut, Deputy Editor of the Commons, calling in from his compound in Dummerston today. Good morning to you, Randy.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Joyce.
Hello, Joyce. Thanks for tuning in. And, of course, we always want to thank Brattleboro Savings and Loan for their financial support of the partnership with Brattleboro Community Television. Brattleboro Savings and Loan is an ultra-local programming sponsor of BCTV live events, municipal meetings, and our segments that get documented by BCTV with members of the local media like Randy. Randy, it was a week ago that you and I were in a place that probably neither of us are very familiar with or have no business being at, a Center for Circus Arts school location out there on Putney Road, but for good reason, with the resolution, at least for now, of the dispute that led to the firing of the artistic directors, the sisters, Elsie Smith, Serenity Smith Fortune. And nice to see that all resolving, at least for the time being. And a great photo by you on the front page of this week's Commons of Elsie Smith. I guess you could have just duplicated it and had a similar reaction from her twin sister if you wanted to.
Well, we wasn't over where she was on last Thursday, but it was a great week not to have to write anything about NECCA.
Yeah.
after last Thursday's resolution. This was kind of the solution I was hoping to see, but didn't think was possible.
Well, and you did a great job of speaking to Elsie as well as Jeff Lewis, the new interim executive director, and also Elizabeth Wool, the president of the board of directors, the new president of the board of directors. And it was surprising to me because I had similar conversations, just how far back some of these conversations, especially between Elizabeth and Jeff went. They certainly could see the writing on the wall, even as it was bubbling under the surface and not known to the public, it seemed.
Well, the dissension among the coaches went back quite a ways, and Elizabeth and Jeff could see that something was up, and certainly when everything hit the fan a couple of weeks ago, that's when they sprang into action. And but the hat tip everyone seems to be giving right now for the resolution to this was to Larry Cassidy. He was the envoy. Yeah,
somebody who finally could step in and get the different sides talking as far as how to get everything back on track. And certainly now moving forward, there's sounds like quite a bit of work that needs to be done, especially when you talk to Jeff about some of the financial issues that were involved. I know I asked him this question, and you did as well, and he hasn't had a chance to do much more than take a cursory look at it. But how close do you think the school actually was to bottoming out?
Well, it would depend on whether everyone followed through on their threats, whether lots of parents pulled their kids from classes, whether the professional track students all said the hell with it and took their money back, whether they could fill up the building with other activities. That would have been, if all that carried through, it would have been a significant financial hit that they couldn't recover from.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like it was closer than anybody might have anticipated. When you think about an organization that was able to get to a point where it could have a capital campaign and build the facility that they've built out there on Putney Road, but they need support from the community above and beyond just vocal support now. They need, as Elizabeth Wool made the appeal, people to go and take classes there and support the events that they do. And now with Elsie and Serenity, the founders reinstated as the artistic directors, that seems to be a good start. But you wonder, especially since they had already made it known that they didn't necessarily want to stay in those roles that they were in before, how short-term of a situation this is with them being back in the same roles that they were prior to the whole dispute.
Well, the main thing was that they're just in charge of the art, and someone else is in charge of the business side of the operation, which I think is what they wanted all along anyways, because it's grown to such a size once they committed to building the new trapezium and rapidly expanding all their classes. There was a tiger they jumped on that they suddenly realized, hey, we're on a tiger. This might not be a good idea. Us riding this thing.
And I think the position that they've elevated Jamie Hodgson, the pro track coach, to. She is now basically the operations manager. When you hear this sort of related but separate concern around safety at the Trapezium, that seemed to me to be a smart move to get somebody basically overseeing those aspects of things on a day-to-day basis. Well,
I've been hearing from a lot of different sources that the safety thing was a bit of a red herring that was thrown out by the folks who were trying to overthrow the board.
Okay.
That safety really, you haven't heard much about accidents at NECCA, and safety. Considering how much trust you have to have in both your coaches, in the equipment, and the people you're working with, and how much you just practice to make sure you're doing it right. I can't imagine there was a lapse in safety as large as what was being portrayed by some of the opponents.
Interesting. I mean, it's certainly you would think that there are basic standards that have to be met, and but that certainly would be an opportunity to create a disagreement where there wasn't one, beyond what just sounds to me, especially after having the conversations and seeing the way the community came together at that press conference last Thursday. Just seems like it was all personality based in the end. Maybe there were problems and real problems that need to be ironed out in the operation of the circus school and who's making decisions on one aspects of it. But really, it was just that these people couldn't sit in a room and get along in the end.
Ego is a big part of any operation involving human beings, and if you don't learn how to tamp down your ego and start thinking about the greater mission of whatever it is you're working on, problems are going to happen.
Yeah, and those sentiments were echoed quite well by Stephen Stearns in a separate but related article that you did. People can open up the Commons and see that on page A3, a conversation you have with Stephen Stearns about building the New England Youth Theater as both the artistic director and executive director, and then essentially knowing when to let go. I thought that was really wise of you. You reached out to Stephen, and he had no problem talking about it.
Well, I'll give a hat tip to Phil Steckler for that. When I spoke with him for the previous story that set up to Christ, he mentioned that, and I'd forgotten the transition at NEYT when Stephen put aside his clown nose
right.
and just wrote off to be an observer rather than an active hands-on person. And it's really hard to let go of something like this, especially when you are the person. Just like Elsie and Serenity, everyone thinks of them when they think of NECCA. Stephen Stearns in NEYT. Yeah,
well, and it was interesting to hear some of the steps he took to make sure that what he had built stayed protected in those ways. And it sounded like he had pretty good confidence in the folks now in charge of New England Center for Circus Arts that they're going to weather this storm.
Yeah, because the people involved are people who are smart enough to know that an institution, no one is indispensable. Or as Charles de Gaulle once said, the graveyards are filled with indispensable men.
Yes, indeed. Always great to quote Charles de Gaulle here on a Friday morning. That's what we rely on Randy Holhut for. That's just the front page story of this week's edition of the Commons. We'll be talking with him about other stories when we come back after the bottom of the hour news break here on Green Mountain Mornings. Chris Lenois back with you on the Green Mountain Mornings program at 21 minutes before the 9 o'clock hour. Play a little Name That Tune with Randy Holhut, Deputy Editor of the Commons. You recognize that tune? Right off the bat. Somehow I had a feeling you'd know that Warren Zevon tune pretty quick. I'm impressed, though, that you got it that fast. And you know why I'm playing it, right?
Yes.
Because we're going to talk about Wendy Levy's story about parking downtown Brattleboro. That is on the front page of this week's Commons, and something that you do on a regular basis, obviously heading into the Commons offices there, and something you've talked about from time to time, especially as the Community College of Vermont and Vermont Tech started ramping up there at the Brooks House. Parking has been at a premium, so to speak, in the downtown area, hasn't it?
Well, not
really. Not too bad.
Remember when they were talking about moving CCV downtown? believe it was Rod Francis or somebody saying that it was only Bob Stevens saying there was only 70% utilization of the parking lots in downtown, and that it would accommodate it. And actually, it does accommodate it. The only days when I use the High Grove lot as the spot I use because the Commons office is over in the Hooker Dunham. The only days that lot is truly full is when CCV and court is in session.
Oh, okay, right. And court seems to be one of the
court or the district court's going. That parking lot's full.
That seemed to be one of the. Well, there's two big trouble areas, but the court area was one of those, and that makes sense as far as that end of town parking has been at a premium, and it is for a long time now, and it's hard because of the roundabout to kind of figure out where to park, isn't it?
Not really.
No? Okay.
It's hard to figure out where to park for free.
Okay.
Like Oak Street now, it used to be able to find a spot. There's a lot of days because where you're out of the parking enforcement officer zone, and that's full now by 9 o'clock every day. Going up High Street past where the intersection with Oak,
right?
That's full now. Most days, the 2-hour spots between the High Grove lot and the Oak Street intersection, those are full most days before 9 or 10.
Okay, well,
that's it. I mean, there's parking. There's plenty of parking in Brattleboro. Easy parking where you can just hop out and be at your destination. That's harder.
Well, yeah, right. You do have to walk a little ways, but as the representative from Desmond Design Management who's conducting this study said in the hearing that Wendy Levy attended, the public hearing, and one of the few people, unfortunately, who attended this hearing, that, average total occupancy during the weekday about 47%, with peak utilization being 57% around the noontime hour. So you would think there's plenty of parking out there, and you can tell by a lot of the questions I'm posing to you, I walk downtown, so I don't usually have to deal with it.
Because you're not that far from downtown where you're at, and you can, it's a good, healthy walk for you, but it's doable. Yeah,
and then I bum a ride back home because it's uphill. I won't lie about that.
The problem with Brattleboro.
It's easy to
waiting for that moving sidewalk on High Street. Well, the problem is this guy from Boston is kind of putting the Boston template where he feels like a $10 parking fine is nothing because it's a lot more in Boston. And the chart, 30 cents an hour for parking is nothing because it's $1.25, I think, now for 15 minutes in Boston.
Well, and he made an interesting counterpoint to some of the rhetoric you hear around town around free parking would make it better make downtown more accessible. He didn't necessarily think that because the turnover issue would make it maybe even harder for people to park downtown if people know that they don't have to move their car because of the threat of a ticket. It sounded to me like this. I guess he had sort of a graded system, whether you're paying for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, and make it more cost effective to stay longer. But I think the free parking idea is something I thought he made a pretty compelling argument against it.
Well, it depends, like everything.
Right.
Remember the argument for building the parking garage? All the people who work downtown were hogging the parking.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there was a parking garage that was for long-term people working downtown, it would free up parking spaces for everybody else.
Yeah.
How's that worked out? Actually, it has. That people who are spending more time downtown park down there. The trouble, of course, with the parking garage is it's dark and scary, even during the daytime.
Yeah.
And the elevator tends to be used as a bathroom.
Yeah. I mean, there are definite issues there, and I wondered about the consultant mentioning that pretty secure parking garages as a general rule, but that's just not the perception of them, and you can't point to statistics and make anybody feel any more safe than they're going to feel in that. And I don't know what you do to make people feel more safe in there. Maybe better lighting or something.
Better lighting, certainly.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing. And then also, wish it was a little bit more sanitary, but there's a that's another problem that needs to be fixed beyond the parking when you're talking about some of the homeless people downtown. But it seemed like it was a good start to a conversation. I hope people are going to the Brattleboro.org website and filling in the surveys, if not coming to these public hearings about it, because it is something I think that we have a real opportunity to try and fix it. And for the first time since the 1980s, I think, which is before the parking garage existed.
Yeah, people are going. There's going to be people that won't go into Brattleboro on a bet because their perception of Brattleboro is you can't find the parking place, and if you do, you're going to get a ticket anyways.
Right.
And the reputation of the parking enforcement officers is as vultures waiting to swoop in on you when you're 1 minute over on your ticket.
Yeah.
It precedes themselves.
I guess the one thing that is a major challenge, which I don't know if it can be fixed when I talk about some of these other things being perception or maybe things that they can do to fix it, but that issue around the Amtrak platform and how people can get out of the train station and walk to town with that very narrow strip of pavement that's available to them. Other than trying to create a whole different way to get up the hill there, I don't see how they do anything to fix that with Malfunction Junction being right there. But it sounds to me like this is something that Desmond and Associates feels is in their purview?
I would hope so, because that's another problem of parking for Amtrak.
Yeah.
How do you do long-term parking? And it's a really convoluted process that involves the police department now.
Yeah.
I guess you have to go to the police department and get a long-term permit from them.
We would be getting our money's worth out of this study and this consultant if they somehow fix that issue and get more people access to the train station, both going to it and coming off of the train station into downtown. That would definitely be a good return on investment if they could figure that out. Wanted to touch on another story on the front page of the Commons with you, Randy, and that had to do with the Ecovation Hub for area colleges joining forces here on something that has been ongoing for a long time. And from what I can tell from some of the conversation that Mike Fair covered, hasn't necessarily moved very far forward in 10 years that this conversation has been having around leveraging the green energy revolution for our area. But maybe this different consortium of the four colleges will finally be the thing that gets it going.
Well, that's the main thing of getting interstate getting interstate cooperation. And I know Wyndham Regional has pushed for this quite a lot to get Keene and Greenfield talking with Brattleboro on issues. Yeah,
and those are School for International Training, Greenfield Community College, Antioch University, New England, and Keene State College. And I guess all of them, their offerings are diverse enough and their student populations are diverse enough, because it strikes me that one of the challenges here with trying to leverage the green energy revolution and the green energy industry here has been the kind of flatness of the opportunities here. We don't have these businesses already here, so we're really relying on this entrepreneurial level, but it sounds to me like we can kind of come at this from a number of different angles with these different institutions.
Yeah, because we seem to have that hub right here in Brattleboro.
Yeah.
And particularly having Alex Wilson there as the kind of guru of green building. We're in pretty good shape to be able to have something to show people, hey, you can do this, learn about it, and get a job here.
Yeah. And with Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, I know we're a couple years into this Wyndham County Economic Development Fund funding, and a lot of that money has been used already, but it feels to me like there's capital there as well to try and bring more of that into this community. So I look forward to seeing more about this than just more conversations about it in the future. And I do think that they gave us a path forward with that, and worth reading Mike's story on the front page of this week's Commons. Always worth reading the sports page in the Commons. Randy covering local baseball during the summertime and some disappointing results for the American Legion teams locally here, right, Randy?
I did not think they'd get shut out.
Yeah.
Back-to-back games.
Brattleboro Post 5.
The proverbial 2-and-barbecue outcome for Post 5 in the State Legion tournament.
Right, and as you just told me right before we went on, because at press time, Bellows Falls had their game scheduled for Tuesday, but they're also out of the tournament now as well.
Yes, they lost to White River Junction, so White River and SD Ireland from the Montpelier area will be playing for the championship today, I believe. Okay, so yeah, they'll get some results from that, but none of the local teams involved that. The one team locally still alive in postseason is the 12-year-old All-Stars for Brattleboro Little League, and they have another game on tap. Where is it happening? Oh, that's actually tonight, 6 p.m. against Williston. Yes, the team that clobbered them in the in the first game of the tournament. So, but Brattleboro has to win this one to stay alive, since this is the elimination bracket championship.
Right. Yeah, and you said Williston walloped Brattleboro, and Williston has already lost a game to Essex Junction 10-0. Doesn't sound like a very appealing task to go and play Essex Junction, whether you win this game or not.
Yeah, well, Essex is looking for a bit of revenge anyways, because, of course, they lost to Brattleboro last year when the tournament was down in Brattleboro. So they're just kind of rubbing their hands in anticipation of, making Brattleboro go up the highway and go through that, because it's really tough for southern teams to go north and win, just like northern teams coming to Brattleboro or Bennington to try and win.
Yeah, well, good luck to the Brattleboro 12s All-Stars, because they're what's left. The American Legion teams are out. The Brattleboro 11s lost in their round as well, so good luck to the 12s, and we'll be reading the results of that in next week's comments and talking to you about it. Randy, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks.
All right, Randy Holhut, Deputy Editor of your Readers Reported, independent news and views source for Windham County, free on stands every Wednesday and online at commonsnews.org. We'll be back to wrap up this edition of Green Mountain Mornings right after these messages.